Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Well, we have a huge weekend that's coming up. Two more games tonight, as you mentioned, a Big 12 game and a AAC game. So glad to see more games during the week. Cooler weather coming, going to be in the 40s next Tuesday and Wednesday around here. So it's like having a vacation almost compared to the heat, but we're glad for some changes and glad for a big week coming up in college football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's a lot of big games. Haven't been a lot of big games like this. A lot of people say they can't hear us, so we'll have the folks in the production staff look into that. I don't know anything about it. Don't know how to fix it. Okay, so it should be working now. They say they can't hear Brent either. They can hear Brent. Maybe they couldn't hear me. Anyway, Brent, I was thinking about this. Somebody, first of all, we got a bunch of text already, but I got a text last night on the Titan Bar text line. I don't know, he's not really a buddy of mine, but he's in Mississippi. He goes, Shane, did you ever imagine that Ole Miss and Mississippi State would have better football programs than your Gators? I mean, think about that.
Yeah. Well, look, the other thing is they've got coaches who've been in their programs longer. We've said for years with Mike Leach at Mississippi State, if you track him at Texas Tech and Washington State, his third year, he really kicks things into gear and you see some improvement. And you've got the same thing with Lane Kiffin, and their defense is significantly better. So I'm going to say a lot of that, Shane, is the number of years the coach has been having the program settled, and the same thing I believe will happen to Billy Napier in Florida soon.
Yep, just got to be patient. All right, Brent, so there's some really big games this weekend. What are the ones that jump out to you the most?
Well, obviously, Penn State, Michigan will attract a lot of attention. Obviously, we'll get into the SEC games in a few minutes. Oklahoma State, TCU, North Carolina State, and Syracuse. And Syracuse has been a fun team to watch at this point, being undefeated, and frankly, a really nice Pac-12 game, Southern Cal at Utah. So I think those are kind of the headliners so far this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Utah. I don't know if Utah's ranked anymore. They have 2 losses. I know Kentucky has 2 losses now. They may be looking at their 3rd loss. So those teams that Florida beat early in the year may not even be ranked when it's all said and done.
Utah is 20.
Oh, they're ranked 20th? Okay,
yes.
Ranked 20th. Okay, so they're still in the poll. Is Kentucky still in the poll?
Kentucky is 23. But basically, they're barely hanging on, but they're 23. Yes.
All right, real quick before we jump into it, Chris says here on the Titan More text line, Shane, drawing similarities between Bama year one under Saban and Florida this year. They went 7-6, but we're in every game, very similar to our season so far. Give Billy some time; he will take us to the promised land. I have no problem at all with Billy Napier.
No.
Daryl says, "Good morning, guys. Brent, there is a possibility that Alabama and Tennessee could rematch in Atlanta. That could be standing room only. Do you have a surprise team so far in the SEC?"
Well, I would say probably one of the Mississippi teams at this point would be. Now, we thought Kentucky would be, and or Arkansas could possibly be your third best team in the league, or maybe the fourth best team. So I would say the Mississippi teams. And look, we're not ignoring Tennessee. We understand what Tennessee's doing. Tennessee's about to hit the tough part of their schedule, and we'll see if we're still having the same conversation in November.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you said, Tennessee could end up losing three games or so this year. We'll talk about it. I don't think they beat Alabama. If Bryce Young plays, I don't think they have a chance, quite honestly. That's just my personal opinion. Everybody has their own opinions. We'll get to that here in a minute. Brent, one of these notes that you sent me here, Iowa has held its first 5 of his 6 opponents to 10 points or less in the games, and they're 3-3.
Yes.
I mean, but they're so bad offensively.
Well, they are. There's only 131 teams. They're last nationally in pass offense. They're 120 in rush offense, and they're 127 in scoring offense. So that is it's an impressive team that when you're talking about defensively, but I mean offensively, I really, Shane, can you imagine having a team that has scored as few points as they have in the SEC? I mean, they've scored 7, 27, 27, 14, and 6. That would be, if you had an SEC team that did that, that would be a mutiny outside the stadium, frankly.
Yeah, it blows me away that you can be that bad, and your coach has been there longer than anybody. And I know his son's the offensive coordinator, but good gracious.
Yes.
A couple of Facebook Lives brought to you by Mellon Law. David said, "Can you imagine if those morons at Tennessee kept Leach? Would have changed the they never had Leach. Mike Leach never coached for Tennessee. Let's see. There was one other one. Okay, let's get to your Heisman Trophy folks that are kind of in the mix, because Andy has kind of a Heisman Trophy question for you, Brent. He says, "How's Bryce Young's time on the sidelines damage his Heisman chances, considering he won it last year?"
Well, the thing with Bryce or anyone else would be just because you miss a game or two does not mean that you're disqualified, because you can frankly, if you have some really good games in your team, particularly as winning, and they're going for a playoff run, I think a lot of Heisman voters will look upon that favorably. Everybody's going to have a bad game at some point during the year, but for the ones that you actually play in, that you'll be given credit for that. So, but the point is, whether it's Bryce Young or whoever, missing a game with injury or even having a bad game is not going to disqualify you. But I think there are some interesting guys who've kind of joined the fray. Will Rogers at Mississippi State, Drake May at North Carolina, Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State, Blake Corum at Michigan. We know about C.J. Stroud is also involved too. So those are some of the guys who coming up now. Stetson Bennett, I think, would be involved with this, and there are plenty of others at this point. So what's interesting is there really is no favorite right now. Some people may look at C.J. Stroud as one of the favorites. I can see that, but overall, no one running away with the award by any stretch.
No, I think C.J. Stroud's going to win it, though, quite honestly. A lot of backup quarterbacks have played this year in the SEC. Some are kind of backup, some really aren't, because they started at one point in their career. But some injuries are going around the league.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys are coming back. Now, Jimbo Fisher made the statement after the Alabama game that, we're playing with a backup too. Well, I guess in some point that's true, but Haynes King was a starter for a while, so we needed to get that straight. So Will Levis, I understand, probably will play this weekend for Kentucky, and they need him badly. KJ Jefferson will also play for Arkansas as they go to BYU. And my understanding, too, is the aforementioned Bryce Young will be playing Saturday in Knoxville.
Yes, I believe he will play for sure. There's no question about that. David asked on Facebook, what coaches are we going to lose after this year? I have not heard anything. I doubt we lose any coaches here at the University of Florida. Josh has a question here on Titan MR hotline or text line. How would you attack this LSU team on both sides of the ball? Ooh, that's a great question. I think they're pretty good defensively, quite honest.
They are.
And you and I will talk more about that. People want to look at that Tennessee game. It's skewed a lot because of the stuff that the LSU offense, I think it was 3 drives. They had to go less than 20 yards for touchdowns, Tennessee, because of whether it was miscues on the special teams or offense doing silly stuff. But we'll talk about that a little bit later, Josh. Mike Brooks says, Tony, I don't know. Patrick Toney's going nowhere, and Patrick Toney is not a problem, people. He is a very good football coach. That just goes to show you don't understand football. It's not Patrick Toney's fault that our players do not understand 3rd and 27 or whatever, and don't come up and take good angles and make tackles. That just irritates the hell out of me when people think that. All right, I'm back onto the other subject. Brent, before we get into the SEC notes, I was thinking about this yesterday because, just like you, Brent, I got a million people, regardless of where I am, they're asking me this, asking me that. And I know Florida's a long ways away from playing for a national title, but everybody wants to talk about the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So I looked, and so like the last 15 years or so, let's see, 1, 2, 6, last 14 years, your national champ this goes back to 2008 when Tebow played. Right. So in 2008, 2010, Cam and Tebow were, quote, dual threat quarterbacks. Okay. The only one since then that won a national title, I guess you could say Deshaun Watson was a dual threat. Everybody else was straight drop back throwers. So I'm not trying to go anywhere with this. I just thought it was interesting because that's all you see in college football right now. And what I like to tell people is you got to find somebody that can throw completions for you to win big. And that's my thought process, my philosophy. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't care. I just think you have to have somebody that can throw the football at a high rate for you to win a national championship.
There's no question. And look, coaches fall in love with dual threats, and I get that. But look, if you're going to have a dual threat, you need to have a guy who's also accurate. That's the bottom line. And I don't care what level of football, and Shane's played them all. If you're an accurate quarterback, you've got a real future. If you're not, you're going to be limited. So I would agree with that totally. I think that's the number one thing for a quarterback is to be able to be accurate. And if you are, you can elevate your team to another level, maybe 2.
All right, let's go around the SEC. We're speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan MR hotline. Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Darring Weeby, a realtor, Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parish will provide you with fast, friendly, reliable service. Give her a call at 352-562-1411. Help your dreams come true. All right, the big one up in Knoxville. Has Alabama and Tennessee, both teams, have they played this game where both of them were undefeated before?
I would have to go back and check on that. I think they have, yes, but it was probably in the, and I actually was in the stands for a lot of these, probably back in the 70s was when I don't believe they did in the 80s. They were capable of doing that in the 90s. This has been a very streaky series, and what I mean by that is once one team gets the upper hand, they will win 6, 7 in a row, and it just goes back and forth like that. Obviously, Alabama's had the upper hand. They've won 15 years in a row in the series, and frankly, I think that extends to 16. I do believe Bryce Young will play. Now, Alabama's got to cut down on turnovers. They've had more turnovers. They're actually +6, which is unusual for them. And you can't keep winning games when you turn the ball over. But by the way, another interesting stat, they played in, since 2021, they played in a one-score game in the fourth quarter 8 of 11 times in the SEC. So that tells you a little bit about how good the league is. Jalen Moody, who had a bruised kidney, number 42, I think is going to be back. Bryce Young is going to be back. Now, Shane can talk more about a AC joint injury than any of us can as far as where that's going. I like Tennessee. I like Hendon Hooker, Jabari Small, Brew McCoy. What we don't know is, will starting safety Jalen McCullough play after being arrested on a felony assault charge over the weekend?
I thought I heard he. Sorry for interrupting. I thought I heard he was playing this week, but they suspended him for the UT Martin game.
Yeah, well, I think they're still trying to figure that out. But I'll say this: I would. He very well may play while they're straightening all the legal stuff out. And again, in fairness to the guy, he'll get his day in court, and hopefully he'll be okay. The other big injury for Tennessee, Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver, he had the tightrope surgery, and he is supposed to. He may not be back. I'm hearing different things. The problem is when you're dealing with injuries, it's just like the NFL. That there's so many smoke screens with things like this that is hard to say. And look, I'm not a big intangible guy. In other words, if someone won last year, does that make a difference in this year's game? Frankly, no. But one thing I do believe in, Shane, is Alabama is used to this pressure. That they have this pressure every week. Tennessee is not. They've been told how good they are. Game day's there. SEC Nation is there. I'm just wondering, will some of that pressure, with the Tennessee kids not used to it, how will that affect them during this game?
Yeah, it's going to be important for them to get off to a good start. I've watched Tennessee enough, saw them live in person. I think their secondary is just awful, Brent. Awful.
Yeah, it's not very good.
And I just think Bryce Young can take big time advantage of that. And I know Alabama hasn't been great on defense, but they've been extremely solid, and teams have moved the ball a little bit. But I don't know how Tennessee's going to block their front four. That's just that. Those are the two areas that I think Alabama can take big advantage of in this football game. Arkansas, in an intriguing game, they're heading out to Utah to face the BYU Cougars, who have struggled a little bit. This is an interesting game. And a game that the SEC needs to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Arkansas started 3-0, and they've lost to A&M, Alabama, and Mississippi State. The main reason is their defense has struggled the way it has. Remember, just a few weeks ago, they were number 1 in the nation in sacks, and they were terrible in pass defense. Well, the problem is they're 13th in the SEC now in defense, that's a problem. And I won't go in all the categories, but KJ Jefferson looks like he will be back, but they do need to get things going. This is a pretty good BYU team. They've fallen on hard times as of late. They lost to Notre Dame. I'm curious what you think of Jaron Hall, the BYU quarterback, Shane, and if you have seen him very much. And I think the other question is, and look, you hear different things about this. This altitude of 4,500 feet. How does that affect the player, Shane? And have you seen or heard much about their quarterback at BYU?
Yeah, I know the NFL guys like him a lot. I've only watched him play a little bit here and there. It's hard to tell. Hadn't seen enough games of him playing. But it will be interesting, as you just mentioned, the altitude, how Arkansas. So this is something that Gator fans tune into this game, see how Arkansas's athletes handle the altitude, because we'll be out there next year, different area of the state, but it still be up in the mountains. Ole Miss is hosting Auburn. Okay, could this be the last game for Brian Harsin? Who knows? Auburn's pretty damn good on defense. They're just horrible on offense.
They really are. Worst scoring offense in the SEC, averaging 20 points a game. Right now, I'm not sure they can score 17 points to save their life. Now, the Harsin thing, what we're hearing about the Brian Harsin is, if Ole Miss just blitz them 50-3 or something like that, there may be enough consternation within the ranks that they make a decision, because Auburn's got an off week that's coming up. What I'm hearing is, from their beat writers, is that they will keep him until the end of the year for two reasons. One, they really don't have anybody on the staff who could be the interim coach. And the other thing is, they've got an interim athletic director. They really don't have anybody right now who can make that hire. They just got a president at the school. And I know it's real easy for us to say sometimes, well, they'll get rid of these guys when they want to with the boosters. Well, that's one thing, but you got to have a protocol to go through in order for these guys to get fired and then people to get hired. So they don't have these pieces of the puzzle in place. But as Shane said, Auburn really struggling on offense. Robbie Ashford doing as well as he can, I guess. At quarterback, Tank Bigsby still not doing much. I don't understand why Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter are not on the field at the same time. But this Ole Miss team continues to play well. They beat Vandy. Zach Evans and Quinshall Junkins are playing well. Jonathan Mingo had a really good game in the second half against Vanderbilt. So, and Jackson Dart, man alive, 448 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also had 2 picks. Ole Miss wins the game. Michael Triggs playing well, too, the tight end transfer from USC. And frankly, keep an eye on Ole Miss that this year, the way they're playing, that they could be undefeated possibly when Alabama comes in November.
They could. In the Swamp, it's an enormous game for both programs, in my opinion, Brent.
It is.
Both sit at 4-2. They're carbon copies of one another.
Yep.
But we know what Florida has, Georgia and A&M down the road, but nobody has what LSU has facing them after this game. Maybe Arkansas, but they still got to play Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M. The West, we all know, is brutal. So this is a huge game in the Swamp. What do you think about it?
Well, it's a 50-50 game again, and I think one of the things that's impressed me about this coaching staff at Florida is that, except for Kentucky, they've been able to win these 50-50 games. What I mean by that is some of these games are toss-ups, and this is one of them. And if Florida can end up being 5-2 at the break, I think a lot of Gator fans would have taken that and ran with it, frankly.
Yes.
The running game, I love the running game with Montrell Johnson, ETN, the offensive line. I know Richardson's going to be hot and cold. We get that. Certainly want to see some improvement in the defense. They make some good plays, and then they've got some bust, like a lot of teams do. Really nice to see Jaden Hill come back and have the game that he did. I thought that was extremely important. Ventrell Miller, what he goes through just to play, I think, is just amazing. And as Shane said, this LSU team's up and down. Jaden Daniels last week against Tennessee, and this is these numbers are pretty skewed, 32-45 for 300, but yet he had a game the other day where he was 8 of 20 for 80 yards. So you really don't know what you're going to get out of Jaden Daniels. John Emery, when he's playing, is a good running back, frankly. And by the way, you may have had the reaction I did with this stat. LSU, the last 2 years, still 11 and 12. You got to remember they had very few scholarships last year. That was a real problem when Ed Orgeron was there. Will Campbell, their offensive lineman, who passed out during a walkthrough last week, went to the hospital, doing much better. They're hoping he'll be back. But as Shane said, a questionable offense at LSU, a defense that can be very good at times. I do think Florida wins, but again, this is probably another fourth quarter bite your nails game.
Yeah, it will be for sure. I didn't realize that LSU's won 9 out of the last 12 in this series. Not that that means a thing, but should be a good one.
Yeah.
I think whoever turns it over less is going to win the game because these are carbon copies of one another.
They are.
For sure. Brent, what else? Georgia's got Vanderbilt, basically a bye week before their bye week. Any news coming out of Athens?
They have been up and down themselves. They really struggled, frankly, at first half against Auburn. Then they turned it on. Branson Robinson and Dejon Edwards, 2 running backs, came up big in that game. Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton have been banged up a bit. But Georgia's schedule is about to get a lot tougher. Florida, Tennessee, on the road, back-to-back with Mississippi State, Kentucky. So we will know what Georgia's got very soon. One of their linebackers, Jamin Dumas-Johnson, led the team in tackles last week, so they've got some improvement going on there. Vanderbilt still struggling, the worst team in the SEC in scoring defense and also in pass defense.
Kentucky, they're supposed to get Will Levis back, and they're going to need him because I think Mississippi State's a fine football team, and Will Rogers will break every passing record in the SEC by the time he's done. He's got 2 more years of eligibility, I think, after this year if he wants it. I don't see him being an NFL guy. I think he's going to be a tremendous college quarterback. What do you see happen up in Lexington?
This is a very intriguing game, frankly. Obviously, Will Levis being out last week really hurt Kentucky against South Carolina. That was a big win for Carolina. Chris Rodriguez had over 100 yards, but that still wasn't enough. Now, Levis, we understand his foot was in a boot, that he will play this week. They had 2 receivers, Dane Key and Tavarian Robinson, who were hurt. Hopefully they'll be back this week. Here's the definitive Kentucky stats. There are 131 teams in Division I. Kentucky is 129, Shane, in sacks allowed with 25. So their offensive line this year, frankly, has been abysmal. But I will say this. I love this state team. What Leach has done with them is amazing. Rogers throws 50 passes a game. They're running the ball much better. Dylan Johnson had over 100 yards. That was impressive. Now, Will Rogers is the all-time leader now in completions in the SEC. History. He passed Aaron Murray, who set the record in 2013. Aaron Murray set the record in 52 games. Get this, Shane. Rogers set it in 28. Yeah. 28 games. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, their passing game's a little bit different, but it doesn't matter.
It is.
He still has to throw completions, and That's what I'm saying. He's going to shatter. He will have every passing record there is when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Now the difference in state, even above Ole Miss, and Ole Miss has improved on defense. The defense coordinator, State's done a tremendous job. Emmanuel Forbes is one of the better players anywhere in the secondary. I think that's what is impressive is how good their defense is. So State's 5-1, but keep an eye on them.
Let's talk ACC for a second. FSU hosts the Clemson Tigers. Any chance they can win that game?
I think they'll play okay. Jordan Travis struggled, obviously, in the law, and they really should have won that NC State game. That was brutal at the end to throw the interception in the end zone. There was a miscommunication there. There was also just about as bad a play in special teams where the punter actually lost track of where he was, ran beyond the line of scrimmage, and still punted the ball. So that hurt them immensely. I still think FSU has improved, and I don't think even with hosting Clemson, they just don't have the players Clemson does, frankly. But I do think there is improvement. They've got to cut down on the penalties. And again, the main thing for FSU really is like Florida is get a winning season and get to a bowl game and continue to improve.
No doubt about it. Brent, great stuff as always. Have a great weekend watching ball, and we will talk to you next week.
Good. Can't wait, Shane. Always enjoy it, friend.
That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Going to take a time out, come back, talk a little high school football in the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points where the Gators go to celebrate. But premium brands like the Keys Bar and Grill, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Le Macaron, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill now selling Head Beer Coach American Lager in 16-ounce cans at Spurrier's, Visors, and Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. We'll see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. We're going to head to the Titan More Hotline now. We're going to be joined by Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News. Good morning, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Shane. How are you today?
Doing well. Appreciate you taking the time. Talk a little high school sports. Let's do this first, since we'll talk football here in just a second, but the high school volleyball, we got some great teams in this area getting ready for district tournament play, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, regular season comes to an end this week. I think Santa Fe has a couple of games on Saturday playing in a tournament, but most teams are done. We already know the seedings for the district tournaments. Most of your district tournament quarterfinals will be played on Monday, district semifinals on Tuesday, and district championships on Thursday. So we'll see. I mean, it's been an interesting year. Class 1A, I think, has probably got some of the most parity that I've seen out of each of the different classifications, for teams in our area. Brantford is in our area. They're ranked second in the state in 1A. Williston is ranked 8th. Union County is ranked 10th. Bell is ranked 12th. And these teams have kind of been beaten up on each other this year as well. Dixie County is not ranked, but they were in the Final Four last year. They're a little bit down, and, everybody's 0-0 starting next week.
We got a question here regarding high school volleyball. Andy asked Mike, this is on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law. He says, consistently great as the Gators volleyball team has been over the years, are you surprised the quality of players in this area that's not at the level to play at UF? Gators only have one local player, and she's from Ocala. I mean, a lot of volleyball. I mean, it's no different than you see so many great high school players in this area. It's all about the measurables. And correct me if I'm wrong, the player of the year in volleyball last year plays at Santa Fe High School. Tremendous player, but she ain't real tall, right?
No, but she's a phenomenal player. I mean, she was voted as the overall player of the year in Florida last year by the Florida Dairy Farmers, Jalen Stout. She's really good, Shane. And, there's been some other good players that I've seen this year, but, for a Division I level, she's it. Now, I'm really looking forward to seeing the girl from Gainesville High School. GHS lost their best player to injury, and she's a girl that's going to be going to USC next year, the following year. She's only a junior, thankfully, so she'll be back for her senior year next year. But that's certainly a big loss for Gainesville. So, Jalen Stout, without question, is the best team in our area this year. But then I think going into next year, I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to see this Brooklyn Teeler play for GHS, because, as I mentioned, she's a Division I player as well.
Yeah, she's got height. Her mama's very tall. She works at UF. But the Stout girl, she's going to she's already committed to a smaller school, correct?
Actually, you know what? To be honest with you, I don't know if she has committed anywhere just yet. I'll have to ask about that.
Yeah.
Not that I've heard.
One of my buddy's daughters plays on their team, and I thought he told me that she's going to one of those, like a mid-major type place. Basically, she's not going to be playing SEC, Big Ten, big-time volleyball because of her size, but she is a phenomenal player. All right, somebody asked real quick before we move on to football. John asked, Mike, can you explain the new ranking system in volleyball? Some districts have 3 teams going to regionals.
Yeah, it comes down to, your district champions are going to get in, and then they start taking at-large teams. So I'm not sure how many per classification will get in, in the at-large. I do know that if you win your district tournament, that you're going to the state playoffs. By the way, Jalen Stout, 360 kills this year, and that's against a pretty tough schedule as well. But, for some teams, you've got to win your district in order to have a chance at the postseason. One of the more interesting matchups, Shane, coming up next week is Gainesville and Buchholz. Those two teams just played on Monday night. Gainesville beat Buchholz on senior night, and even though they swept them, the first set was 27-25. Third set was 25-23. it's a situation where Buchholz has to win to get into the postseason. But right now, based on where they're ranked, Gainesville would receive an at-large. Now, that could change, obviously, but GHS with 18 wins this year, despite the fact that they've lost 3 starters to season-ending injuries. I mentioned Teeler for them, that's gone for the year. So kudos to Chancey Weiss and the job that she has done, because herself, she's been out for several games due to health issues, and somehow they've been able to piece it together, and they're ranked top 10 in the state in Class 6A. So that's one of the bigger matchups coming up next week. I think that one on Tuesday and Bell and Union County in Class 1A are 2 of the bigger volleyball district semifinals coming up next week.
Hey, Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Mike Ridaught on the Titan Amara hotline. All right, let's switch to football. About 4 weeks left in regular season for high school football. We got several teams that will be heading to postseason play. Let's start with the big boys first. Buchholz continues to do what they're going to do. I think they go undefeated. They do have a couple of tough games against Oakleaf and Bartram Trail that could give them some difficulties, but I think they will end the year undefeated.
Possibly. I really want to see, this Bartram Trail game is interesting. I think Buchholz certainly will get the win tomorrow night against Oakleaf, but then they've got to go to Bartram Trail. And this is the Bartram Trail team that hung 59 points on St. Augustine. They beat Lincoln on the road. They've beaten Daytona Beach Mainland on the road. It's not a foregone conclusion that Buchholz can win this game. I think Buchholz has a chance to go undefeated, but they've got to get past that Bartram Trail game next Friday night. Then they've got Fleming Island on the 27th. But then, Shane, it's still a tough finale. They've got to go to Jacksonville and play Bowles in what was a close 1 or 2 score game last year. So I'm not sure if they can run the table. They're very good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they just put it on Gainesville, but that's no surprise. GHS hasn't won a game yet this year. Their best chance for victory comes tonight against Palm Coast Matanzas. But that game next week, Shane, Buchholz and Bartram Trail, knowing the fact that it's at Bartram Trail,
yeah, that's not good.
That may be the difference. It's going to be a big game.
Good. Well, just here's what's crazy, and I've never heard of this in my entire life. So it was the score was close, but the game was not close when Buchholz played Creekside in St. Johns County. Do you know how many penalties were called on Buchholz?
I don't.
30.
Wow.
30 penalties were called on the Bobcats, which they said basically every time they had a long run or whatever, call back for holding. Yeah. So that's where St. Johns County could get them.
Yeah, possibly. In that Buchholz game against Creekside, if you look at the score, you might say, well, Buchholz really struggled in that game. The final was 48-41, but Buchholz led that game 34-14 at the half, and then some crazy things started happening in the second half, and Creekside was able to make it interesting. But yeah, you're right. You always have to worry about that home cooking. Yeah,
30 penalties because Buchholz had like over 700 yards of offense. And so anyway, let's go to the 1A rule or whatever it's called now. There's some really good teams in our area, and you're going to be calling, which should be a barn burner tomorrow night against Union County and Hawthorne.
Yeah, really looking forward to this one, because it's a chance for one of these teams to kind of flex their muscle as one of the top teams in the state in Class 1R. Union County is their only loss right now, Shane, is to a University Christian out of Jacksonville, which is still undefeated. And that game was on the road in the season opener. Since then, Union County has kind of righted the ship, and that was their only loss. They beat Dixie County last week 42-6. Now they've got a really good running back in Rayvon Durant, but it was actually the arm of A.J. Cortese last week that made the difference in that 42-6 win. He was 19-26, 271 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, they are playing against a really good Hawthorne defense. Jalen Ruth, phenomenal football player for them, one of several Division I guys on that team. The fact that this game is in Lake Butler, I give a slight edge to Union County, but I expect this to be a fourth quarter game tomorrow night. We'll have the game at 106.9 FM. You can also listen to it online at imcountryradio.com. Big one tomorrow night in Class 1R. Both those teams, according to Max Preps, are ranked top 5 in the state. So a big showdown in this small classification.
Yeah, so explain to us like the meaning. I mean, obviously you want to win this game, but does it have any bearings on the playoffs? Because we do know that it's going to be Union County, Hawthorne, Chiefland, and Williston probably from this area. I may be leaving somebody out, but does it really have any bearing on seedings or how all that works in the 1R playoff system?
I mean, it's going to obviously help your strength of schedule. You just mentioned the teams to watch out for in this area. Chiefland is still undefeated. Williston is undefeated. Now, those two teams will play each other coming up in a couple of weeks. Actually, that's going to be the last game of the regular season. Madison County, don't count them out. Even though they've got 4 losses, they played a tough schedule. They are the defending state champions. So don't leave them out. And then I think, we'll get a better gauge after Friday night, Union County and Hawthorne. Hawthorne was in the state championship. They've been in that state championship 1A the last 2 years. So this is a big game for them as well. So Wildwood, a team that, took Chiefland to overtime, is another team from just outside our area that is a team to watch in the playoffs too. So, 1A or 1R rather is very loaded.
I got a text here on the Titan Number text line from Jimmy. He says, Mike, can you give us an update on how Trinity Catholic is doing? Well, I can tell you this. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say Trinity Catholic wins the state title because of the classification they are in.
Yeah.
Am I wrong there? Have you seen who they might be playing in the playoffs, Mike?
Let's see. Trinity Catholic, they are, I would say, probably First Baptist Academy out of Naples, maybe their toughest competition. And if they get to the championship, but to get to the championship, they're going to have to get past North Florida Christian. The one thing about this Trinity Catholic football team is that they can put some points up on the board. In fact, in their last game, they scored 49 points. They beat Clearwater Calvary Christian. The game before that, they hung 56 on St. Joseph Academy. No surprise there, but they played some tough teams, Shane.
Right.
They opened up the season against Florida High in Tallahassee, and they led that game, I think, in the third quarter. They ended up losing the game by 3. They also hosted Jacksonville Reigns, a higher classification team. They're going to go to Ponte Vedra this week. Actually, they got Ponte Vedra at home this week, but very tough schedule. They'll close with PK Young. I think they'll win that one easily. I agree with you, Shane. I think Trinity Catholic has a really good chance to not only win the football championship, but their volleyball team is really good too. They could win football and volleyball state titles this year.
Yeah, because I know that John Brantley has an extremely tough schedule, but at his classification and their district, it was like a cakewalk. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But
they got a good running back too, in Brent Beaird. He's going to be over 1,000 yards before the season is over. It's a football team that averages, about 175 yards a game on the ground. But they're really good, Shane.
Who else in Marion County? Obviously, Vanguard's always good, but they've lost a couple of games this year. Are they down, or is it due to who they played?
That's a good question because they also have played some tough games. They had to go to Niceville. That was just a 1-score game. It took overtime to beat Dunellen. I broadcast their game against Buell. They lost that one on a kick in the last 14 seconds of the game. But I guess the surprise to me was the loss to North Marion. Now, I know it's a rivalry game, and in those games you can throw out records, you can throw out rankings, but it was a North Marion team that I thought was starting to struggle a little bit because North Marion had lost at home to Live Oak Swanee. Then they turned around and lost to Eastside on a Monday night. By the way, Eastside's got a chance to win a district championship later this month. So great year for the Eastside Rams and Harold Gator Hoskins. But then to beat Vanguard, they beat them 18-17 last week. Now, I do think they're going to kind of turn things around. North Marion, meanwhile, they've got to go to Hawthorne next week. That's going to be my broadcast next Friday night, so that should be a good win as well. But I think in the end, again, we're talking about Vanguard. They're always in the playoffs. Seems like they're always in the region finals. I think they'll end up being there. But I was just a little surprised that North Marion was able to get that win after they had lost back-to-back games.
Yeah, I agree with it. Mike, great stuff as always. Let everybody know how they can check out your work and listen to your broadcast tomorrow night.
I appreciate it, Shane. I'm actually going to have a story about the 1R classification and that Hawthorne Union County game tomorrow at mainstreetdailynews.com. In addition to our radio coverage of that Hawthorne Union County game, as I mentioned, 106.9 FM, or you can listen to it online at imcountryradio.com. We're going to broadcast that Oakley Buchholz game. It will be available at mainstreetdailynews.com audio, or you can watch the game. We'll have it at theprepzone.com. Also on social media, you can watch it on Facebook Live. You can watch it on Twitter, Twitch, and also YouTube.
Great stuff, my man. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you on down the road.
Sounds good. Thank you, Shane. Have a great one.
That's Mike Ridaught. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Going to take our final time out, come back, and wrap up this Thursday edition.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office, a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. This day in sports brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Give Comfort Temp a call at 352-376-2366. This day in sports in 1971, the first ever baseball World Series night game was played between the Pirates and the Orioles in Game 4 at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. That's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Andy says real quick, well, first of all, John asked who would throw more touchdown passes, Mahomes or Allen? Gosh, who knows? They're two unbelievable quarterbacks. Shannon didn't realize Osiris Torrance was injured. He's listed as questionable. That may have a significant impact on the game. There's no question. Hopefully he'll be able to play. We shall see. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Tomorrow we will have JC on the program. We'll do our Peachland Dental weekend picks. We'll have Brody Miller LSU beat writer, giving us his thoughts on the LSU Tigers. Have a great day out there, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.